Hey guys, it's your boy Nico here from the Small Axe Podcast. I want to show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. You see, not everybody begins their investing career with millions of dollars, a huge network of investors, or the knowledge necessary to become successful in this space, and that's okay. What I focus on here on this podcast is helping you hone your skills, sharpen your tools to become the best investor that you can be. Now, I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this show. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to me or the guest, feel free to do so. Love you guys. All right, Small Axe community. It is your boy Nico here, and a few things. Number one, I am back. I am back on my regular podcast setup for the past few months, maybe 8 months or so. My brother's been living with me, and I have not had my original setup, meaning this microphone, which sounds great, and my camera, which looks beautiful. It makes me look even more guapo than I am. So happy to be back here on my podcast setup, my podcast studio, if you want to call it. And I'm also happy to be talking today for a solo episode. All right, here we go. Now, we're going to dive a little bit deep into what it is to be an active multifamily real estate investor. Some of you may not like this because it might not be the answers that you want to hear. It might not give you the information that you want, but I need to set expectations for those people that have made drastic decisions in their lives to kind of like give up their jobs and move somewhere and really go all in on multifamily, which I totally feel and believe in, but I need to set some expectations and some realistic expectations for you guys. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the state of the market today. Today is August 4th, and the world is ending, apparently, but there are still deals to be had, and I really need to point that out too. So we'll start with those two topics, and if something else comes to my head, I will share with you guys. Here we go. If you are looking to be an active multifamily real estate investor, how are you going to get a deal? Let that question sink in for a minute now. The problem is, and I say this to a lot of people, especially the newer investors, myself included, it took me a long time to get an actual deal, and I'll talk about that in a minute. How are you going to get into a deal? Let's say, apples to apples, you had an offer, you made an offer on a property, the same exact offer price as somebody else. Why would a broker choose you? Or if it's an off-market deal, why would a seller choose you as a buyer? This is very important to understand. And I think that we need to set the expectations now. A broker or a seller needs to understand that you are a credible buyer, somebody that can close. And I've said this a million times, and a lot of people talk about it. Can you close? That's the most important thing for a broker, not necessarily price. So they might take somebody with a lower offer price than you if they know that they have a track record of somebody that can close. So you have to be able to close a deal, but it's like a conundrum, right? If you can never get your first deal, how will somebody know that you are a closer? How will somebody believe in you? So let's talk a little bit about some tips and strategies to kind of keep you going and keep you moving, keep you motivated, and get you into a deal, which we all want to do. So I asked the broker, so I closed on my first deal, my first lead sponsorship. It was close to 3 years. It was basically 3 years after starting my real estate investing journey, meaning I began a mentorship program late 2019, and I closed my first lead sponsor, being the lead sponsor on a multifamily syndication in fall of 2022. That's 3 years later. And I asked the broker, I said, why did you choose me? Because it was a strange time and it was a strange market when I got this deal under contract. But there were some other people, there were some competitors. Maybe my offer price was good, might not have been the best. He told me it wasn't the highest, but he chose me for a few other reasons. Number one, He saw that I was consistently responding to his emails, to, always engaging with him on every single deal that he put out there. This was an on-market deal at the time. He saw that I would consistently give him feedback on his deals, and he knew how I looked at and underwrote and analyzed deals. So he saw that I was somebody that was not going to give up. 3 years it took me to win a deal. And I might have had offers that were similar to other sponsors and other investors, but I was never chosen with good reason. And we'll get into that later. So that was one of the main reasons, that I was consistent. I was constantly in his face. I was constantly showing up, and I did not give up. He saw me as somebody that was going to stick around. Another reason, I announced on the Facebooks and on the social media that we had just closed and sold one of our other assets. Now, I got into this other asset basically as a co-sponsor. We'll talk about that later as well. So he saw that I might have some capital available, or at least the access to capital, which is extremely important as well. Meaning investors, an investor database, or people that I could reach out to that could bring capital to the table. So those were two things. Now, the next thing he also noted was that there was a very, very good chance that I had access to more than just investors, but just people that could make this deal happen, because he saw that I was active in with my podcast. He saw that I was active in all these Facebook groups, and I was in different mentorship programs, and I was constantly all over social media, just showing that I was in the game and doing things and being an active real estate investor. That gave me some credibility. I also kind of partnered myself with and I guess shared the spotlight with pretty well-known people, right, in this business, kind of piggybacking off of their success. This is all demonstrated and highlighted on social media. So he saw that. He was getting my newsletters, likely, don't know if he was reading them, but he was getting my newsletters, sharing some updates about what I was always working on, what I was focusing on, and he decided to go with me. Now, he told me that I was not the highest offer. There were higher offers, but if you don't know the team that is coming in with a higher offer, he's not going to choose them. So he felt that he knew me enough to give me a shot at the deal. And he did, and thank God he did. So that was my first deal, right? And only deal up to date. And it took me 3 years to get that deal. I've done other deals. I was a co-sponsor, co-GP / capital raiser, investor relations guy on other deals, but I never led the deal. I never put everything together. I never put the team together. This was my first everything deal. So let's backtrack. If you are a brand new investor, how the heck are you going to get selected for a deal? If you're focusing on a very hot market, like the Greater Tampa MSA that I was focusing on, you better be ready to either put in a ton of time and effort, like I did, 3 years, to show that you're sticking around and you know your stuff, or have the money available, have the net worth liquidity yourself, or access to it, or have a fund ready to go. Those are the two ways that you're likely going to be able to get into a deal without any credibility, without having done a deal yet, right? You have to have capital, or you have to be persistent for a certain amount of time, a long time. And you have to show intelligence, right? If I was engaging with this broker and talking about some of the deals that he was putting out in a way that demonstrated that I was a novice, he would have not selected me, and I wouldn't either. There's no harm, no foul in not choosing somebody that's not going to close a deal. You lock up people's time and money, and then things happen, interest rates rise, and now the deal is going to be losing money, right? You have to sell it at a lower price. I get it. I understand why I was never chosen before. Okay. Guys, if you hear crunching in the background, I don't know if my dog is just chewing a lot, but if you can hear that, I apologize. Let's keep going. All right, so you want to get your first deal. I highly recommend for you guys and most people to get into their first deal just as I did as a co-sponsor. You come in with your team of investors, your close network of investors, and you bring in a certain amount of capital to a deal. You sit in on all the asset management calls. You watch how the deal gets negotiated, gets closed, gets done. You then have access to lawyers, a whole brand new team. You have access to lawyers, you have access to cost segregation guys. You have access to insurance brokers. You have access to everything that that current successful team has. And that is key. Okay. So while you're beginning your journey, I highly recommend that you get in as a co-sponsor capital raiser. Obviously, the SEC does not allow capital raising per se, unless you are going in a specific way, and you have to, it's very highly regulated by the government. I recommend that you go in as a co-sponsor. You bring your investors to the table. You then engage actively in the deal, as a co-sponsor should and does, actively engaging in deals and participating through investor relations, asset management, anything that you can do to show that you are actively working on the deal. Don't just bring money to a deal and walk away. You cannot do that unless you're doing it legally. There is a legal way to do it, but then there's a lot of laws and restrictions with that as well. So I recommend that you come in as a co-sponsor, you find a team that is willing to take you on and show you the ropes and have you have an active role in the deal. Now, if you are willing to do what I did and wait 3 years, well, kudos to you. I will help you in that journey. Give me a call. I will give you all the tools, tips, and resources that you would need to do that and to be successful at that. Okay. If you have your own money, your own capital, awesome, go for it. However, I would caution you to really, really make sure that you understand how the deal is, how to underwrite a deal. Okay. And if you don't know how to underwrite a deal, reach out to me. I have underwritten maybe 500 to 700 deals at this point, and I am 500 to 700 deals, and I'm very proficient and confident in my underwriting. So give me a call. I can help you out. I am also building my own proprietary model that I will be sharing with people down the road, just not yet. So if you have money, you need to understand what you're getting into. So please just reach out to me. I can help you, or reach out to somebody that knows what they're talking about before jumping into a deal. I feel that a lot of the deals that over the past couple of years that were done were overbid, mainly because there were unsophisticated buyers that were, smoking the hopium, as they say, hoping that the market is going to continue to rise, and it is not anymore. So what the hell is going on right now? People are losing money. People are failing in their syndications, failing in their deals. Not everybody, right? But to put it lightly, shit is going down. To put it bluntly, rather, shit's going down. People have locked in the wrong kind of debt. People have not bought rate caps. Rate caps have gone through the roof. People are now, dealing with debt that is coming due very soon, and they need to sell, and they lost money. Insurance is sky high. Other expenses are sky high, and returns are not what they expected to be. And it was really hard to underwrite for all of this, and we all say that we are conservative. Yes, we are conservative in our underwriting, but it's hard to underwrite for certain unexpected things, like interest rates, rate going up 500% in a year, which is more than or crazier than something that has never happened in the past. Couldn't really foresee that coming. But we always want to hedge against that and make sure that you have fixed rate debt and or solid rate caps in place. And if not, and you don't want to be over leveraged either, because that's an issue too. So people are always like, it's a fine line and a balance between being over leveraged and properly leveraged, right? To where everybody wins, meaning the deal can still be successful and you don't need to bring in that many investors, and the deal can still kind of perform at a good number. So somewhere between 70 and 80%. Some people went in leveraged at 80, 85%. The problem is people are using bridge loans for stabilized deals, and that just is a no-no in itself. So no bridge loans for stabilized deals. Use bridge for bridge product, and I do believe in bridge, but yeah, that's that. So let's move on. I also said that I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the state of the market today and what I see is going on, and why I think it's still a good time to buy real estate. I think that it is always a good time to buy real estate as long as you buy it properly. Now, each market, talking about geographical market, each market is going to be different. Make sure you understand your market very well. I spent years analyzing, understanding, underwriting deals in one particular market and have not strayed. Is that a fault of mine? Maybe, but it's made me feel confident when I make offers. Make sure you understand the market that you're in, first of all. Make sure you understand the nuances of that market before you are making offers. Make sure you understand the deal, the comps, and the debt. Extremely important. Make sure that the deal hits the majority of, if not all, of your expectancies or what you expect in a deal, your criteria. I expect 80s or newer build. I expect flood zone, no flood zone. I expect concrete block construction, pitched roofs. I expect, taxes to be in, with a lower millage rate than the highest areas. I go for C-class properties, sometimes B. Okay, so these are some of the criteria that I look for, and I got to hit at least 75% of those for the deal to make sense for me. I always go in with a realistic CapEx budget from the beginning of underwriting. I like to start with around $15,000 a door for both interior and exterior. That gives me a good basis to begin with. Then what I do is I order a build facts report. I search the county for any permits that were pulled, and we tour the property with a contractor, if possible, to understand and get a little bit better idea of what we're getting into with our CapEx budget. Okay. Then we formulate and build out a plan, because the CapEx, let me stick with the CapEx budget for a little while. We formulate and build out a plan about what we want to do with the property. Now, sometimes you can take a look at a property and leave, just put paint on the walls, and you can raise rents, right? And that's what we have to do. We have to raise rents in this market. My mom was on Section 8 her whole life, and I struggled with the idea of raising rents on people, but it is absolutely necessary to stay in business, to be profitable. You have to raise rents, especially the way the expenses are skyrocketing. We have to be able to raise rents. So sometimes that requires just some lipstick. Sometimes it requires more. Okay. Now, I like the general idea of 15K a door, because sometimes some of the units are already renovated. You don't need much. Sometimes the units are not renovated at all, and then it's going to max out around 15K from what I've seen in C-class properties. We can get away with anywhere from 10 to 12, maybe 13 on a full rehab on a C-class property. Big units, I'm talking 800, 850 square feet. And then we have some money that we need to put outside, right? So a lot of times that goes into either landscaping or like parking lot overlay. So you have to kind of dial it in as best as possible. Start around 15K a door, and then work your way either up or down. After you do your inspection, your due diligence, then you might have to unfortunately renegotiate on some items. Some unforeseen items, for example, maybe the roof, if you didn't know that it needed to be replaced or repaired, maybe it wasn't in the build facts report, maybe there was nothing on the county website about any permits being pulled for it, and it just looked good. So you can't really tell until you get a full inspection. Maybe septic, plumbing, electric, things that you can't really tell from just doing your initial preliminary due diligence, you might have to unfortunately renegotiate on. Sometimes you renegotiate, sometimes you adjust your business plan, which is also possible. If you really like the deal and you really believe in the deal, adjust your business plan. Why not? Just be careful, because some banks are requiring higher reserves these days, and you might not have known that going into your initial, capital raise or expectations for how much money you need to put down. And so some banks are requiring more reserves. Some banks are requiring you to escrow more money, and it just is what it is. So just be careful. I always like to go in feeling, with a little bit more than expected with CapEx, just so we have some money to play with. And if shit hits the fan, which it does a lot, and there are always issues that arise, unexpected issues, it's good to have a little cushion. Yes, you can always adjust your business plan down the road again, but try not to, especially if you feel like you need to have that business plan implemented in order to raise the rents, because remember, you need to raise rents. Okay. Debt. Let's talk a little bit about debt, and then insurance, and then we'll kind of cut it. So debt, extremely important to understand where debt is at. Local banks, credit unions, and agency is typically what I'm looking at. And if it's $1 million or more, I will consider agency. If the debt I'm talking about, if the loan is going to be $1 million or more, I'll consider agency because they don't go below that, right? You should know this. And if it's less than $1 million, we basically have to go community local bank or federal credit union, which we do as well. So make sure you're contacting as many people as you can here. If you don't feel comfortable, confident, get a broker to do it for you, a mortgage broker, right? No big deal. They're going to find the best deal for you. Yes, you have to pay for it, but they will find you the best deal, especially if you're kind of like shorthanded or you don't have too many guys on your team. You might need that help. So debt is extremely important. Right now, I'm underwriting around 6.85, maybe 7, depending on the loan, right? If it's I'm talking community bank, I'll do 6.85-ish because one of my favorite banks has got they are based on the 5-year treasury, which is around 4.85-ish or 4.3. I don't know where it was last, but plus 2.5 points. So we're somewhere around 6.5 and 7%. With 6 months, maybe 12 months, you can negotiate of IO, 25-year amortization, and sometimes 30. They typically go 60 LTV. Some will be more aggressive with 70 LTV, but it's very rare these days. Make sure you understand debt. Try to lock in 5 years minimum of fixed debt, and don't model in a refinance when you're underwriting these deals. All right. Let's also talk about insurance. Insurance is extremely important, especially down in Florida, where it has doubled or tripled in certain areas in a year. Okay. So make sure you have a few contacts that can give you a quote fast. Some insurance brokers don't give you a real quote or don't want to give you a quote until you're further along down the road. And us as operators, when we're offering on multiple deals a week, we need quotes quickly. Now I typically underwrite for $1,500 to $2,000 a door a year, whereas a year ago we were underwriting for $800 a door a year. So it's doubled or more than doubled, and just make sure that you are aware of that. Make sure you understand expenses, and here's a huge tip: if you don't know expenses in the market that you're looking at, or you're kind of new, contact your lender or contact somebody that has access to CoStar, and they can pull you the averages and give you a report of the average expenses in that market. And that'll give you a huge advantage for when you're underwriting your deals. Try that. All right, I spoke enough, guys. I am going to end it here. Remember, I am building my own proprietary underwriting tool. If you want to learn more about that, reach out to me. If you liked this episode or you like hearing from me, I would be honored, extremely, extremely honored, and overwhelmed with joy if you were to share this episode with somebody who you might feel could find value from it or is stoked about learning about multifamily, is as excited about multifamily as you are. Share it with them, have them enjoy it and listen to it. Write me a review and leave me a rating on Apple Podcasts. I would be forever grateful. It helps the podcast grow. Know that I'm always here to help you, and I love you guys, and let's rock. All right. Hey, Small Axe community. I would like to say thank you for listening to another episode of my podcast, where we show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. Now, if you liked what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. Also, if you want to get in touch with me, go to my website at smalaxecommunities.com. Book a call with me. And until the next episode, keep sharpening those axes.